evening and welcome to Meticulous Moments. My name is Juanita Kapp. You can reach me at meticulousmacarons@gmail.com or find me on LinkedIn. Since the COVID-19 pandemic hit the globe, I've had the wonderful privilege to meet a wide array of fantastic individuals. These individuals have truly touched my life in so many positive ways. Amongst this group of people, there are authors, public speakers, life coaches, poets, leaders, and visionaries. They are the unsung heroes of our time. Therefore, I decided to start the Meticulous Moments movement out of a sense of my gratitude. It is my way of giving back to the community. Let us share and reshare their stories in an effort to build a better society. Today we have the privilege of spending time with the amazing Michael Le Blanc. Let's read his bio. Michael Le Blanc, MSW, LCSW. The energy of your limits and struggles is different from the energy of your success and solutions. Michael has over 34 years of experience in helping people learn how to journey beyond their analytical mind, meaning their head space, and tap into their divine intelligence, their heart space, to gain clarity. Listen to their intuition, move past limiting beliefs, and embody new and improved states of being and energy needed to manifest their best lives. I quote, "Your inner self has to be aligned with your dream fulfilled." Wow, wow, wow. Initially, it was hard to get out of my head, says Sonia, and into my heart. But I did and could actually feel myself let go of my issue and struggle. And that is when I started to cry because it feels so good to truly let go. That's also when I received clarity about what I needed to do. That was extremely powerful. What a wonderful testimony by Sonia. Now, continuing on Michael Le Blanc. He knows personally that for our outer world to change, our inner consciousness and energy, the thinking, feelings, and beliefs must first align with the improved state of being we seek. This is why he named his business Create with Consciousness. We have to think and feel from the end, from our prayer answered, says Michael. Only then will our outer conditions improve or change. Michael is amazing. Here's another testimony from Lynn. Michael is amazing. He helps hold my vision with me. Even after our sessions, he helps me discover where I have missed the mark and helps me find the missing pieces. He has a gift and an ability to help me refocus on what I know to be true and to remember that truth. He has helped me grow with my business by 30% in a very short period of time. Thank you, Lynn. More about Michael. He's an Amazon best-selling author of the following: Manifest a Better Life with God. Use your inherent nature, which includes the law of attraction. The next book, Divine Dirt, Inspiration, Spiritual Teachings, and Gardening Tips all in one. Next book, The Abundance Factor, and this was co-written with Joe Vitale. Also, fourth book, Divine Dirt number 2, Digging Deeper, and this book is expected to go on Amazon in the fall of 2022. He's a certified coach specializing in customizing energy meditations for stress, wellness, and manifesting. He's a licensed clinical social worker since 1987. Several Reiki certifications are attributed to Michael Le Blanc and training in breath work. He's trained in Ericksonian hypnosis. He's trained in a Hawaiian healing technique called I'm going to try and pronounce this, Ho'oponopono. I've never heard of that before. How interesting. Studying and practicing meditation since 1989. He featured multiple times in the Law of Attraction magazine. He's been a guest on various radio shows and podcasts and also speaks at conferences. He designs and facilitates his workshops based off teachings from his books and energy meditation practices. Meditate and Manifest Your Best Life is one of his memberships because we can all use support and guidance when meditating and manifesting specific improvements in our lives. He has online courses such as Return to Wholeness, Bless and Balance Your Energy Centers, as a 7-module course with 3 bonuses and guided energy meditations. And also Make Peace with Your Struggles, which is a guided energy meditation. He's the designer of so many inspirational products featuring his garden photography and inspirational writings, which are available at his online store, divinedirt.net. And he has 18 years of experience as an international safety leadership consultant and trainer for major corporations like Chevron, ExxonMobil, Corning Incorporated, Saudi Aramco, Tech Mining, and many others. And he has designed and delivered trainings for over 25 companies in over 25 countries. We are so honored to have you with us this evening. Welcome, Michael Le Blanc. Good day, everyone, and welcome at Meticulous Moments. Today we welcome the astonishing Michael Le Blanc. Welcome, Michael.
Hey, I like your word. Astonishing. Well, we'll see how that goes.
It will go just fine.
Yeah. No, I know. And thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
It's a pleasure, Michael. It is such an honor to have you in our audience today. And would you just like to welcome everyone from your side and tell them who you are and what you do? We would love to learn more.
Yeah. So, this woman came to me and she was struggling with her business. She was self-employed and she was just like, it was slow for clients. Money wasn't good. And she was just in a bad place with it. She practiced spirituality. She was big in metaphysics, law of attraction, sort of that kind of stuff. All that stuff I kind of study, practice myself and like to apply in my coachings. And so she was visualizing trying to grow her business and trying to attract more clients. And so she was sharing with me like, well, what are you visualizing? Like, talk to me about that. And really what it came down to, she saw herself lackful and wanting business. And so she kept trying to see her business grow. Oh. And so started to explain, like, she wasn't thinking from the end of her business already successful, that lack is not the absence of abundance, that in divine intelligence, lack is a complete and whole demonstrable concept in matter, space, and time. And so if you're envisioning yourself lackful and trying to attract business, lack is a full, whole concept that is demonstrated in matter, space, and time. And so she kept just demonstrating more lack. I said, abundance is a different concept. It's a different whole and complete thought in divine intelligence. And it also is demonstratable in matter, space, and time. So I said, it's not like lack is the absence of this. They're both whole, complete concepts. They're both demonstratable. So I said, what I want you to do is I want you to start visualizing your clients are happy with you. They love you. You exceed expectations. I said, so I want you to already envision the business active and successful. And I want you to hone in on one particular client and one particular moment with that client. And you feel and you hear their excitement about you. They're sharing their joy. They're like you've exceeded their expectations and they can't wait to tell other people about you. I said, I want you to hone in on just that moment. Yeah. And I want you to get into the feeling of that moment, because that feeling, that interaction, when you're successful, you think a certain way and you will feel a certain way. And right now, the way you're visualizing, you're not experiencing that because you're still in the place of lack. So I said, let's go over here. Business is already solid. you're experiencing a client. And she started doing that. She started visualizing, but more importantly, feeling that. And there were some nuances we had to tweak there, but within a few weeks, she's calling me. We're following up on a coaching, and she's like, I don't need any more business. I'm as busy as I want to be. Like, let's move on to another topic.
Wow. I love that.
and so a lot of my work is really, I do believe we are divine intelligence being expressed.
Yeah.
And I do believe we can tap into that, and we are connected to that always. We just aren't always tapped into it. We aren't always conscious of it. We aren't always leveraging it. And so with her desire to be more successful, I needed her to think in a way her divine intelligence would, which is, your prayer's already answered. It's already successful. So let's go there and think there and feel there and experience that. And as she embodied the energy and consciousness of that, then things started lining up. Like, that became a demonstratable in matter, space, and time concept, right? Yeah. And so a lot of my work as an author, as a coach, I'm certified in Reiki. I've done breathwork trainings, and there's a Hawaiian healing technique called Ho'oponopono. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. So I've been doing this like 34 years. I've been trained in Ericksonian hypnosis many years ago. And so really, at the end of the day, what I love to do is get people out of their head space into their heart space, connecting to their divine self again. And then from there, let's embody your prayer answered. Whatever that is. For her, it was her business. I've had another client. She was depressed. She was isolated. She felt anxious a lot. She functioned in her day job, and then she would come home and just collapse and isolate. And she sent me pictures. She had, like, her sink was full of pots and pans, molded, mildewed. She just didn't have the energy to deal with her world. And so one of the things I talked about with her, I said, let's just do energy work. I said, let's just bless and balance each of your energy centers. I said, I don't want to talk about why you are like you are. I said, I know there's been, like, there's been abuse, there's been traumas, I know all that. Like, that you wouldn't be shut down if that hadn't been the case. Yeah. But I said, your consciousness is already staying fully aware of that always, which is why you're shut down. So I said, the worst thing we can do is talk about it. Like, I don't want to put your attention where it's stuck. So let's do something else. So we started, it's a combination of focusing, breath, Reiki, Ho'oponopono that I blend together. And we bless and balance each of her energy centers. And I always record my guided energy meditations with my clients. And it's like, all right, so now go practice these daily, multiple times a day. Yeah. And I knew if I saw her twice a week, she could get quicker results because her energy would move quicker. So we started doing twice a week.
The vibration. Yeah.
And really a few weeks, it was probably a good, I'd say 2 months later. Yeah. My husband and I are at a concert. We're watching we're at like a theater kind of place. And I feel my phone vibrate. And so I check it, and it's her. And she's sending me pictures of clean pots, clean kitchen, clean rooms. It's like her energy's coming back, right? Yeah. And this whole process, like she was here in Louisiana. She really wanted to be back in New York, where she grew up, and be with her sister. And she had all these reasons why she could never do that ever again. Like, it just wasn't ever going to be possible. And so we kept doing the blessing and balancing of the energy centers. I kept on having her envision herself healed. I kept on, like, just maybe the universe can get you back to New York. Wow. Like, let's just entertain the idea, right? Yeah. and you know, what's been fun is it's been a couple of years now, but she's retired. She sold her house here, which she thought she could never do because of the condition it was in. She lived near her abusive dad, and she thought she'd never be able to leave him. And now we do our coaching calls from her little apartment in New York on Long Island, exactly where she wants to be. She's 2 months from the beach. She's near her sister. She's got a job she likes. It's like, so I share those stories just to kind of bring it together. So they both came with different reasons. One's depressed, anxious, isolated. One's just trying to grow her business. But it's really about the inner work and getting that consciousness and that energy aligned with your dream fulfilled.
Yeah, yeah.
And then embodying that as much as you can. And then as you become that, the outer world starts shifting and matching where you are.
Wow.
And so as an author, a lot of my writings are about that. I do workshops around meditation, around manifesting. And so they're about that. I have a couple of online courses, like the Energy Centers one is an online course with the meditation. The meditation we're going to do today is called Make Peace with Your Struggle, and that's also available as an online. And I have a membership for people who like to meditate. And so we meet every 3 weeks to meditate together and then talk about things we're trying to manifest and practice different ideas and things like that. We also do Lynn McTaggart wrote a book called The Power of Eight. And so I kind of borrow from those concepts, but I call it the power of done. And so we go into meditation as a group, and we really hold someone from the group who needs help. And it could be a family member, it could be a friend. Recently we did it about the Ukraine, but it's really praying for them, but from a place of the prayers answered. And so there's a guided meditation I bring 3 people through on that. So anyway, I know that's a kind of a long roundabout way to share about me, but there you go.
I love that. I was thinking a few things while you were sharing. It is amazing the effect that you've had in people's lives, and teaching them that the universe really reciprocates what we give. And, if our thoughts are pondering on all the negative things all the time, that is just going to let us draw more of that unto ourselves. And I kind of felt while you were speaking that you help people to recalibrate their energy, to teach them how to manifest. And I think if there's ever been an important time in history, it is now for people to be versed in how to manifest the lives that they want, because it wasn't a topic that was spoken of so often like it is now. I know a few years ago, the concept of manifesting, your dream life and, your wants and your desires, it was something very foreign to me personally, because I'd never been versed in it. But since the COVID, I'd say even more so. I've done my homework and I've read up about it and researched up about it and researched about it. And I'll have to tell the audience that what Michael does, the manifestation that he teaches people through the manifestations that I've done also, they work. They bring results.
They do. My goal is to be more masterful at it, right? Because it's like there's still areas of my life. I mean, I still struggle. I still have days I feel bitchy. I mean, but I know exactly what to do to bring myself back, which is, I think, what's more important, right? But I think one of the biggest limits we have is we think we're really human, and we think it's just about matter, space, and time in this three-dimensional physical world. And most of our thinking is from within the mind and matter, space, and time. And your divine mind expresses in matter, space, and time. Your divine mind isn't limited by it. It influences it. It causes it. So your divine self has no thought that's ever been hindered, limited from a concept of matter, space, or time. And most of our thinking about our lives and how to go about our lives comes from a thinking within matter, space, time. And I got to do something here. and so what I'm really trying to do for myself and get better at, and with my clients and with workshops and my books is sharing what I've come to kind of believe and know from a spiritual perspective.
Yeah.
Not really religious. It's like the religion, I was raised Catholic. I have no problem with that. It just, I got limited by it. It felt like it wasn't taking me further.
Yeah.
And I had a clear argument with God, and I was like, "You're fired." I was like, if this is as useful as you can be, then I don't have any use for you. Like, I don't need a God that's going to help me after I die. Like, that's just, like, I'm here now. So either you help me here now, or you just like, so we had this big argument and yelling match. and I often do those, but I always feel better after. But one of the things that happened in there is the universe heard me and heard my request for more. And when I went to grad school in San Antonio, I ended up doing an internship in a little town in Texas called Victoria, Texas. I'd never heard of this place before, but I was going to do an internship. I was going to work at a psych hospital with teenagers. They were going to put me up in a cottage, and they were going to feed me, and they were going to pay me a little bit of a stipend. I was like, well, you win. It's like, I can do my internship, you'll pay me, you'll feed me, so it's a no-brainer. But in Victoria, Texas, I ended up meeting this couple. We were all part of a adult children of alcoholics kind of support group thing. But they had their own support group. They had their own study group, and it was on the Course in Miracles, which I'd never heard of. And so that journey, Mike and Myrna Wright became these two people who they were part of that answer that I asked for. Because once I got into Course in Miracles, that led to Ernest Holmes and Science of Mind and a lot of his books, and Neville Goddard and visualizing, and then later Esther Hicks and Teachings of Abraham, and then Joe Dispenza and all his work. And so there's just been this collection of people
wonderful
that are all part of my writings and teachings and stuff.
So it's a combination of everything that you've learned, in your contact with people, and the courses that you've done, and the content that you put out there. And I resonate with what you've said, Michael, because I always teach people they need to get out of their minds. They need to start thinking with their hearts, because I feel that in the flesh, we are so focused on fleshly things. But when we really start to realize how tangible the spiritual world is, we start to see the world in a different manner. So I always tell people, don't react in your emotions. Don't internalize the disappointments that you have, or, if you don't agree with someone on something, go and look what is the spiritual principle that you are learning in that situation. So, and I agree with you, we can't just draw from one person or one course. We have to go and look for more, and then kind of form an amalgamated view on what we found. So your work is very interesting to me. Thank you for explaining that to us.
No, you're welcome. It's definitely been a collection of, and a lot of my growth spiritually has been through books. It's been more, and unfortunately, a lot of people I love to read are dead. But there's a purity to the way they write, and there's a purity to what it doesn't feel watered down by a little bit of disbelief that I pick up on some current folks. And so I tend to go back and I reread. But what I find is there's a new depth. When you're ready for a new depth, there is a new depth, even if it's the same book you read 2 years ago. So it kind of keeps going. So. Yeah,
and it evolves like we evolve and we change. That message keeps changing for us. That is amazing. It's almost like the message meets us at the place where we are at that specific moment when reading it. Now, I've written here that you are an Amazon best-selling author and coach on spirituality and manifesting. So tell us more about your leadership journey. What were the pivotal moments in your leadership journey where you knew you're a leader and you have this mission?
So when I was in my 20s, I really thought I was going to be a priest. I was at LSU. I was in undergrad. I was actually in pre-med, and I got very, like, my spiritual. It all became very personal, in that time in my life, and I get very passionate about stuff, and so I was like, well, I'm just going to be a priest then. It was like all or nothing kind of stuff, and I started. I dropped out of college for a year. I got a job cooking at a seafood steakhouse, and they would let me take time off though, without pay, but I could still like go. And they had different religious orders within the church that you could go stay with them for a couple of weeks and see what they were like. They were called come and see programs. And I'm always been experiential. Like, let me go experience something before I can know if that's really what I want to do or not.
Yeah.
And I'd prayed for 3 signs. And one of those signs was blue roses, because I'd never seen a blue rose in my life. And I was like, well, that's one of my signs. And if I see a blue rose in the others, I'll be a priest. Yeah. And I go to San Antonio. I go to San Antonio for one of these come and see programs, and they take us into this house, and it's a living room, and on the mantle is this like big, massive vase of blue roses. And it was one of those oh shit moments. And I was like, damn, but I know. But I ended up not doing that. I was coming to terms with my sexuality and being gay. I didn't find myself religious. It was like I spirituality, but I wasn't really religious. And it's like, well, if you're a priest, you probably should be more religious. And you probably shouldn't, the gay thing probably won't work well, And so even in my 20s, I had this moment of wisdom, like, that's probably not the best route, right? And I had some friends who were in social work. And I was like, well, at the end of the day, it's the caring about others that I liked about the priesthood anyway. And so that led me into my social work journey and getting my master's in social work. And so that, and then that became a career with adolescence. And then I started my own business as a part-time therapist, part-time landscaper.
Wow, I love that.
My first entrepreneurial was my own business. I had part-time therapy, counseling, and then I had part-time. I literally did landscaping and yard work, and I grew up on a farm, and I just missed physical work. And at that time, I was doing a lot of my own therapy and stuff. And so the groundedness of being outside was like, I need that for me. And then I can show up better for others. And so that was part of my journey there. I had a horrendous experience with a client. And really, she threatened to take my license away and all this kind of stuff. And I found out later she had a whole history of doing this with people and then getting her money back and stuff. But at the time, it was like, I'd worked so hard, spent so much money to get my license. Yes. But the thought of losing my license was terrifying to me. And so it threw me in a tailspin. At the end of the day, as much as I was angry with her, what it really surfaced was I really believed a lot of her stuff of you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not competent enough, you don't know what you're doing, right? And as much as it would be nice to want to blame all that on her, the truth was all that was there. I held those doubts and and so my whole world kind of fell apart in about a year, and I went back working for others and and then did a whole nother career in coaching, an international consulting and training. And it was a whole different, I shifted gears. And I got very
maybe that's at the time.
I got very successful in that. I was teaching leadership for companies like Chevron, ExxonMobil, Saudi Aramco, and my job was, I could go and love people for the day, and then I was done with them. So,
which also was a positive experience in one way.
it was, and because I was with an international company and our clients were international, I trained in like 28 different countries.
Wow.
So it was an amazing experience. It became, I knew it wasn't what I loved. I missed personal growth. I missed spirituality. And that led me to write this book.
Manifest a Better Life with God. Beautiful.
Yeah, and the subtitle is Use Your Inherent God Nature, which includes law of attraction.
Love it.
So while I was in corporate America, I knew I needed to leave soon. And this was my beginning that journey back to starting my business again. But this was my first book. There's tons of great reviews actually on Amazon.
I'm sure.
Which it surprises me, but it was fun. It's fun to see them. But I wrote it as a story. So you enter into prayer time with God and I, and chapter 1's called, Well, Why the Heck Isn't It Working?
Interesting title.
And I wrote it as a story. So you enter into prayer time with God and I, and this conversation is happening between God and myself about, well, why isn't it working? And why is it sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't? And what's all that about? And the book I was going to write was 10 reasons why law of attraction isn't working and what to do about it. I would go into prayer and meditation, and then I would write. And this book happened. This isn't what I planned on writing. And so this is the book that explains our oneness with divine intelligence and my journey with a God out there becoming God as consciousness, intelligence, not a separate anything. And God takes me to the ocean, and there's the ocean, and there's, like millions of waves going on, and uses that analogy to explain like the individuality that we see in the world of matter, space, and time. But if you go behind the wave, there's really one large ocean there expressing all of it. And so there's this analogy of the wave in the ocean and how we are the wave. And if you go beyond matter, space, and time, you're connected back to that oneness and stuff.
Amazing.
So part 1 is about us as spiritual beings. Part 2 is about how do we leverage that to manifest things in our life. And so that became my first journey. My second was a chapter with Joe Vitale's written.
Ooh, the abundance factor. Wow.
Yeah, and he's written like 30 books. He's been a bestseller. He was in The Secret, that movie, The Secret. He's written his own books, like I can't remember all the names, but anyway, I have a chapter in his book.
Wonderful.
And it's really it's about, I did an experiment about how do you effectively pray for other people and get results?
Good. Interesting.
And I had some volunteers, and I was like, all right, what are you trying to improve in your life? Share it with me, but I don't want to meet with you. I'm just going to go within and pray and do my own thing. And we're going to check in like every week and see what's happening. And you just go about your world. And it was really interesting because I had one guy, he was trying to grow his business. And 2 weeks later, he's like, hey, a record day, right? He had like a record day in his business.
Wow.
Another woman, there was her husband and his ex and children and lawyers and custody battle, and it was nasty. And so hers was about a month later. She's like, there's an attorney that's for the first time has said, we really need to resolve things, because none of this is really good. none of this is really good for the kids. And she's like, he's never said something like that before.
Breakthrough. Breakthrough. I love that.
Another was a house that wouldn't sell, and there was this whole list of reasons why the house wouldn't sell. And I was like, well, send me a picture of the house. And I wrote sold on the picture, and I kept going into prayer, and I just see this family happy in the house and happy in the house and blessing the house. And it was about 2 weeks later, the house just sold. It was fine.
Well, there you go.
So this is about my how I did that. And then since we're on the book talk, I'm just going to
I love that.
So this is my latest. It's actually a collection of stories. And it's paired with photography from my garden. And the idea is you hold the book, think about your life, open it up. I gave it to a woman. I was visiting with her and her friend. I was at a book signing kind of thing. And we were laughing and cutting up about stuff. And she took the book. She heard what I said. She went to the side. She opened it up. I'm visiting with her friend. We look over and she's crying. And we're like, what the hell happened? Because she was she was fine a minute ago. And we check in with her and she goes, I did what you said. She goes, I thought about my life. I opened it up. And the chapter she opened it up to was called You Are Enough. And she goes, that's exactly what I was struggling with is believing in I am enough. And she's in her 60s and she just read like the first few lines and she said it just made her start crying and stuff.
Captivated her. Wow.
Yeah. And so it's really a book of just open it up, read a little bit. Each one's like a page or so. I had a mother from Arkansas. She emailed me and it was kind of a long email. And she said, I don't usually write this much, but I want you to know what I'm going through so you can understand the impact your book's having. Her 31-year-old son had taken his life a few months before. He was married with kids. It was devastating to her, the sister, the family, everybody. And her sister had a copy of the book and she had a copy of the book. And her sister was like, have you started reading it? And she's like, no. She goes, I'm just trying to deal with a day, right? And this was about 3 months later, I think it was. And her sister said, well, I think you should start reading it. And so she was emailing me to tell me she started reading it. And there's a chapter called Fear to Joy in 12 Minutes.
Amazing.
And it's a story about me waking up terrified, anxious, and grabbing my journal and doing what I call my true self agreement. And then I timed myself and I just reached for thoughts that felt better and thoughts that only my true divine self would have about me and my life and my world.
Yeah.
And really within 12 minutes, I went from really anxious, terrified about life to life just felt amazing to me. Wow. And it was a 12-minute journey. And so I share that story and she was sharing with me like that tool was the first thing giving her a little bit of relief from her grief. Right.
Amazing.
So, and then now I'm working on Divine Dirt 2, which I'm hoping is going to come out this fall. And Divine Dirt 2 is called Divine Dirt Digging Deeper. And the difference is it's going to be similar. So each chapter you open it up and there's an inspiration.
Beautiful.
But the difference is the next book's going to have a worksheet.
Inside.
It's going to allow the reader to dig deeper into the concepts, teachings, things like that. So each chapter is going to have a digging deeper, what we're calling kind of a contemplation page, if you will. So I have to be honest with you. I know we started off with a question about leadership.
Well, I told you we can branch out, and I mean everything. Just
and
amazing.
all of that's been part of my leadership journey and careers, and now I'm on my current business again in my 50s, and what was another question you had for me? Let's get back on track.
No, I just wanted to add, the audience needs to know that those beautiful photos in Divine Dirt are photos of your very own flowers in your garden. That
They
is
are.
amazing.
It's so this is a combination of my passion: spirituality, writing, gardening, and amateur photographer.
Amazing.
and this book kind of brings all of those passions together.
Yeah.
And I get a lot of I go into prayer and meditation, and I get inspiration. And that's how this all started. I started writing these inspirational pieces and pairing them with a picture from my garden and sharing it on social media. And people were like, hey, I was really struggling with something that really helped me. It was perfect. So I kept writing them. And then about a year and a half later, I had a collection of them. And then I turned it into this book. And that idea came from meditation and prayer time. And then the idea came, well, words are uplifting. They have energy. Images are uplifting. They have energy. So what if you put those on T-shirts, mugs,
beautiful. Oh, lovely.
Water bottles.
Beautiful.
There's blankets. There's throw pillows. There. So basically, if you go to divinedirt.net, there's a whole online store where I put my photography and inspirational writings on different products. There's note cards, there's flip-flops, there's beach towels, there's...
I love it. Amazing.
that was another, one of those ideas. And then it's like, well, how the hell do you do an online store? And it's like, so that just became a journey. And so now there's an online store. Yeah. So...
Wonderful, Michael. Wonderful. Our next question is, who is the leader that made the biggest impact on your life?
I shared a couple of, the couple in Victoria, Mike and Myrna, and their Course in Miracles. That was a big transitional, step change, if you will. There's been I guess because I'm an author, there's a lot of authors I think of, Ernest Holmes was a big, because he talked about consciousness and God is consciousness, and Neville Goddard did that, and then Esther Hicks did that, and Joe Dispenza does that, and so all these people, although they're not people I know personally, they're all those leaders though that I draw from and have drawn from. One of your questions was about our current leader that I would love to meet.
Yes.
There's really two that are alive, and one would be Joe Dispenza, because he blends spirituality and science really well. And I've done his intensive workshops. They're 5 days, and they are intensive. It's literally what it says. You do hours and hours and hours of meditation. Sometimes you're at 4 a.m. getting together, starting these meditations, and they go on for hours. But it is transformative and it is intensive. But I love the way he bridges science and spirituality. And the other is Esther Hicks. The teachings of Abraham were big, another one of those big, it all resonated. It all made sense. It broadened my mind on things. And I've gone to some of her live events, but if you could sit down with them, right? Those would be two people I'd love to have private moments with.
Fantastic, because they made such a big impact on your life. And you were speaking about spirituality and science, and I've taught people for years, because in the religious circles, often, scientific facts and scientific things were frowned upon. And I used to always tell them, there is a God who created religion, spirituality, and science. He's the creator of all. And those things are not separate concepts. They all come together. I mean, at some point in my ministry, people frowned upon the word energy. If you use the word energy, it would be something foreign. And I said, well, everything is energy. You are energy. So you need to make sure that you know that spirituality is something much more than what you perceive, the churches to advocate or to preach on. So I think that's a journey But I love the fact that there's a breach between the religion and the spirituality and science, because everything originated from our Creator. So we shouldn't frown upon these things. We should use them, these concepts, in our development and in our growth. And I think sometimes people fear what they don't understand. And what I love about what you do is you give them a concept. You really put things into perspective for them about what's really happening in the universe. Because there's a reason why there's a saying that says ignorance is bliss. People sometimes miss things that are right in front of them. They miss the key to their happiness and their growth and their fulfillment. And I feel like you are the catalyst to show them the way, to kind of bridge those preconceptions and self-limiting beliefs that they sometimes hold.
The bridge part feels right. There is because the spirituality I grew up with, a God that's separate, a God that's out there. And for me, he was kind of a little moody bastard. Sometimes helpful, sometimes not, And so for me, though, I never needed to get rid of the word God. What shifted for me is what that word means. Yes. And so from a being in the sky to intelligence, consciousness. And I feel like when Joe's talking about quantum physics and he's bridging stuff together, to me, it's all studying divine intelligence. It's all studying consciousness. It's not causing any of it, but it's studying it through a particular lens. And now as you go into quantum physics, it's all very different than Newtonian physics and the world of matter, space, and time. And so, but anyway, I love the two coming together. So
fantastic.
That's part of my mind that likes science.
Science is important. A lot of the breakthroughs that we have as a human race comes from science. And, for instance, in my belief system, God created even science, and people shouldn't shy away from things they don't understand. They should, they should reach out and try and understand energy and science and the universe. And then a lot of things in their life will make so much more sense, in my opinion.
And it's, as I read things, and even with my own books, I just take what resonates with you and leave the rest.
Yes, eat the fish and spit out the bones.
Because what resonates with you is where it means it's right for where you are now, right?
Yes.
And in 2 years, something different's going to resonate with you, and it'll be right for where you are now.
Fantastic.
And so you kind of take the nuggets and you leave the stuff that's just like, I don't know about that. Don't worry about that. You don't need to take the whole thing. Just take what resonates. Yeah. Cool.
I agree. I saw a post of yours that I loved on Facebook.
Okay.
And the words were, I meditate so that my mind cannot complicate my life. Will you explain that to the audience? I love that.
So it reminds me of another quote by Mark Twain. I think it was Mark Twain. And he said that he's had a lot of serious problems in his life, and some of them were even real.
Well said.
And it's a lot of times what's stressing us out is our thinking about something.
Yeah.
And it's more than the something, it's the thinking we're having about the something. Yes. And so even when I'm in my worst place, like when I talked about fear to joy in 12 minutes and I woke up just anxious and I just woke up fearful, it's really, there's a space my mind is in, and there's a way it's looking at the world, and that's what's really scaring the hell out of me. And so meditation isn't about stopping thought, but it is about, let me withdraw my focus from there and really settle it back. I settle mine back into my breath and my heart space, and just come back to that divine space. And it's not about I need to stop thought. It's just about I need to release my focus from that thought and bring it back to center. And so when I teach meditation, I typically use a focus on your heart space and your breath, and sensing your breath. And what research actually shows is if I just start sensing my breath and sensing my heart space, and deliberately started breathing more of what I call an all is well breath. Like you don't need anything in your world to change to sense your breathing, sense your heart, and breathe an all is well's breath. Your being knows how to breathe that way. Your body knows how to breathe that way. Yeah. If you did it right now while I say, breathe a breath that equals all is well, your body knows what to do. Yeah. But what research shows is if we do that for a few moments, a few things happen. When I'm sensing my breath, I'm interrupting thought. Yeah. So if I keep sensing my breath, I'll keep interrupting thought. So if you're in an anxious place and it's like your mind's going 150 miles an hour and it's out, it's hard to go from 150 to 0. But if I sense my breath, when you sense your breath, you're not thinking. Sensing isn't thinking. So as I sense my breath and I feel it, I'm interrupting thought, and I'm slowing that 150 miles an hour down to 130, 120 if I stay with it a little bit more. Yeah. The other thing research shows, though, is as I breathe here and sense here and focus on my heart space, I really start improving the rhythm of my heart. Wow. And 90% of the neuroconnectivity between your brain and your heart is from your heart to your brain. It's ascending. Wow. It's not the other way around. Oh. So as I improve the rhythm of my heart through my breath, through my focus, I literally improve the communication going in my brain. And so I'm just going to talk about anxiety and stress for a minute. So if I'm anxious and I sense my breath, and I breathe all as well, and I do that for a few moments, I start improving the rhythm of my heart. That can literally reach into the primitive part of my brain called the amygdala, which is where the fight, flight, that stress response is happening. And it starts chilling it out. Wow. And it has way more power to do that than a positive thought. Because if you're in a negative space and you try to think a positive thought, I don't know. I have the ability and the talent to think a positive thought and still feel like crap. So,
I think all of us do.
So probably somebody else has that talent too, and it's because the energy of that thought, that positive thought, isn't strong enough to reach into that primitive part of your brain and impact your biology and your neurology. But when I sense my breath and I sense it here, I interrupt thought. I improve the rhythm of my heart. Yeah. Because 90% of the communication is going this way. Oh, wow. This literally can reach into that part of my brain, and it starts shifting. It starts shutting down the biochemistry of stress, and it starts improving the biochemistry of wellness and well-being. And so when you do it just for a few moments, you start feeling ease. You start feeling some relief. You stay with it longer, that grows. Yeah. And it's really because you're removing your focus out of the wrong space. Yeah. You're bringing it back. You're sensing your breath, which interrupts thought. And as I breathe and sense here, I start literally improving the rhythm of my heart. And that starts improving the communication going to my brain. And so there's like physiology behind the process. And there's tons more research on meditation and the improvements to mental health and physical health and all that stuff these days. And part of the process we're going to do today is that meditation incorporates that step. Yes. Right? And even if
and I see why I use the word astonishing. I mean, what you've just taught us is astonishing. See, I was right. Please continue.
No, because sometimes people think, well, it's just a relaxation technique or something, and it's you're doing way more than relaxing. You're changing. If anxiety is chronic, let's just go with that. All that means is your brain and your nervous system is there to help you. So if it notices you think a certain way often, it's going to help hardwire that thinking so that you don't have to do that. It can do it quicker if it's on autopilot.
Autopilot. Yeah.
So your brain is noticing, look, you tend to think, life's hard, life sucks, it never works out. Your brain is noticing, well, you tend to think that way a lot. I'm just going to put that on autopilot for you. And so now with very little effort, you can think that negative thought and you can feel that negative feeling because it's on autopilot. Your brain and your nervous system isn't making a judgment like, well, that's a shitty thought. Why would I want to think it? It's just you're an intelligent being. So it's like, well, there must be a reason. All I know is you're focusing there all the time. So I'm just going to make it easier for you to focus that way. So chronic anxiety is really just your brain and your nervous system has noticed you tend to think over there a lot. And we're just going to put it on autopilot so it's easy for you.
Wow. Interesting.
And then it becomes on autopilot, and now there's momentum, and so it becomes chronic, right? So now you go to chronic anxiety easier than you go to somewhere else.
Jeez.
When you sense your breath and you sense your heart space, when you notice you're being anxious, now you're starting to interrupt your neurology. And you're starting to show your brain and nervous system you're doing something new. If you keep doing it, if you keep doing the meditation, if you keep doing the breathing work, if you keep doing this heart-centered focus, it's going to notice, hey, you tend to go there more often. Let's put that on autopilot. Let's just make that easy for you.
Yeah.
And the negative stuff, you don't need to struggle with it. You don't need to do anything with it. You just need to practice the stuff you want to do. And your nervous system and your brain's going to notice you're doing it, and it'll put it on autopilot. It's kind of like when you first learned to drive. When you first learned to drive, you had to think of all these things: accelerating, braking, signals, turning, mirrors, looking. Well, now all that's an autopilot. Your brain's like, oh, I notice you're paying attention to all that. We'll just put all on an autopilot for you. So now you get in your car, you drive from A to B, you get out, and you don't even remember what the hell you did.
It's so automatic.
and you're sober, and so
plus that.
So it's if I practice the breath and I practice this, I'm interrupting old neurology and I'm laying the groundwork for new neurology. If I do it more and more often, because all the research shows meditation can help with numerous physical things and mental health issues like depression, anxiety, isolation, all that stuff. But they all say it's the consistency. And I really think the consistency is because if you consistently do it, your neurology is going to pick up, your brain's going to pick up, it's going to start putting in an autopilot. So it's going to more quickly produce that biochemistry than that biochemistry, right? And if now your cells and your immune system and your biology is hanging out in a better environment, health is what's natural.
And that is what we all long for, isn't it? Having good health, mentally, physically, emotionally.
Right. Yeah. But if my cells, my biology, my immune system is constantly hanging out in a stressful body, then it's only a matter of time something breaks down. I mean, it has no choice, right? So there's a lot to benefit from meditation, from breath, but it's the consistency, and your brain and your nervous system pays attention all the time. And if it notices you're doing something new, it'll join you and it'll support it and it'll help it become easier. So
I love that.
What I tell people is chronic doesn't mean permanent. It just means it's chronic.
Yeah,
and
it can be.
you can do something in the positive direction that can also become chronic.
Yes. So we want good chronic. We don't want negative chronic.
Right.
I read somewhere, you were talking about that fear and stress and anxiety. And I have to say, from my side with the counseling, I've seen how that is on the rise since the COVID hit, because people kind of found themselves in a space of limbo. Not everybody adjusted this at the same pace, leaving people with a lot of fear and worry and anxiety. And I did a study and I read somewhere that, if you are continually in that fight or flight mode, and that comes from overthinking, then your body actually starts to get ill, because you are not made to be in the fight or flight mode. It's not supposed to be releasing those hormones continually. Those hormones are there to keep you safe if and should there be an emergency. So what you've explained, it is so easy. Let us, for the overthinkers there in the audience, for the people going through the fear and the stress and the anxiety, take this information that Michael has rendered to you and apply it and breathe yourself to a better health. And not only physically, but emotionally and spiritually. And, it's going to mentally elevate your life, because you are not going to then chronically be in that fight or flight mode. You are chronically going to be in a state of peace, like Michael has explained. Your body will go into autopilot. And what do we all long for? We all want a happy, healthy life, and we all deserve that. So I appreciate it, because it's something that people can take, the knowledge that you've given us. It's not difficult. It's something everybody can do if they only make that step and that choice to do it, because it's a choice, right?
It is, so, and it doesn't mean, life still happens. I still have shitty days. I still have things that make me mad. I still have things that make me worried. It's just, I know now I can, when I'm done with being mad, if I want to feel different, I can do that deliberately. I don't need to wait for anything to happen to help me feel better. Like, I can decide to feel better when I'm ready to feel better. And sometimes I want to be mad. And so I go ahead and I be mad, right?
Human emotion, it's necessary.
It's like, but it's like, I know I can shift it if I want to shift it. Yeah. One of the guys, he came to my meditation workshop a while back, and he's a nurse and he works in ICU. So it's intensive care, it's high stress. People's lives are constantly in the balance. And so he said a lot of times at work, he gets nervous, he gets anxious because of the stress, because of the critical nature of the patients. Yeah. And I always check in a day or two after the workshop, a few days. And so it was about 2 days later, and he said he had started using just the breath and heart process of the meditation process. Wow. In the moment when he started noticing his stress, he would breathe a breath that equals all is well. And he would just make himself focus on his heart, on this space, and sense that for just a few moments. Again, interrupt thought, come back here. And he said immediately it started helping him calm down in the moment. And again, when we're calmer in the moment, we think better. We're more intelligent, because the anxiety is not interrupting our thought process and our ability to think well. And so it was really great to hear him use it in his moment of anxiety to interrupt it, bring himself back to center while he was in the ICU, dealing with folks. So it's you can do it while you're driving. You could do it while you're in line at a grocery store. You could do it while you're in a meeting, whatever.
Amazing. I'm sitting and I'm thinking the word empower is coming to my mind. It empowers people to feel that they have some sense of control over external situations. If you are going through that anxiety in that moment, because I've counseled people that go through panic attacks, and believe you me, to them it feels in that moment like they are going to perish. They cannot foresee that they'll live through that moment. And teaching them these principles that you bring to this webinar is empowering them to get rid of that fear of when will the next one be. Because what a lot of them do and what they tell me before the onset of that panic attack is that they stop breathing. It's like they can't move.
Sure.
And teaching them this empowers them. What's your thought on that?
No, it absolutely does, because we're used to responding and reacting to the external world.
Yes. Yeah.
And so if it's going well, I feel good. If it's not going well, I feel bad. Right.
Yeah.
And then I can't feel good again until my outer world gets better. And then I can feel good again. So, which is all reverse. It's all backwards. And it's unfortunately, they don't start teaching this, and they should start teaching us this in kindergarten and preschool.
Yes, I agree.
Like, hey, life is going to be upsetting, and some of that's going to be your parents, right? but when you get upset, here's something you can do, and you don't need anything in your world to change before you can feel better. Right? And all you got to do is you can take charge of your breath and sensing this heart space. And as you breathe here and as you sense here, and the research shows if you do it just like 3 minutes, you start shifting your physiology. You know, and if you keep doing it, obviously it keeps going. You know, if the car is going 150 miles an hour, you'll notice it if it shifts to 130, 120. It doesn't mean it's at zero, but you'll notice a shift.
Getting there.
And so just keep going. You know, there's always a good reason why we get upset. It's like we don't make this stuff up. That happened.
Life happens. Yeah.
And this isn't about that didn't happen. It did happen.
Yeah.
But it's about, do I want to stay there? Do I want to keep staying there?
Choice. Yeah.
You know, and so this is just, it becomes a tool. And it's more powerful than trying to think differently. When you're in a bad space, trying to think positive, usually you just don't want to.
Yeah.
And when you're in a bad place and somebody's telling you that everything's okay, you just usually want to slap them, you know? And so what I love about this is like, you're not trying to think, you're trying to sense your breath. Don't worry about trying to think. Don't worry about a positive thought. Just sense your breath. Just sense your breath. You can sense your breath and you can focus here and just do that for a few moments. That's all.
See the results.
Yeah. And then as you start shifting, then you can think a better thought. And even with people who use affirmations, so if anybody out there uses affirmations, it's more powerful if you get out of your head, get into this heart space, and then affirm.
Yes, that gratitude. Yeah.
If you're in a negative space and you're trying to affirm, you just got two currents going on. And the one that's more stronger, like the negative feeling, is what's going to win.
Yes.
So first, if I can get out of here and into here and just feel the ease, feel the shift, stay with it for a few moments. Then when I feel the ease and I feel like I'm here and that's slowing down, then affirm. If it's visualizing, like I talked about with my clients earlier, first we do that and then we visualize. It's like, so step one is always, I got to get out of my head. I got to get back into my heart space and that divine space, and then do whatever the plan was. Affirm, visualize, whatever.
Yeah, so overthinking is really the enemy of progress, to my mind, because, you know, sometimes we fathom all these weird things and negative things, and like you said in your quote earlier, none of them are really even true. And that's just the part of human nature that I don't think we'll ever figure out, but it's how it is. Like you said, life happens.
Sure. You know, one of my clients, she was trying to improve. She felt her boss was being overly critical and just sort of, you know, just being a real ass, excuse the language. And so I was like, well, let's go within and start experiencing him differently. I said, my hunch is throughout your day, you're having arguments with him in your head. And she said, that's true. She goes, even though he's not around, like he could not even be in the building for the day, all day long, she's fighting with him in her head. I said, so you're keeping an energy alive.
Feeding that negativity. Yeah.
And so the consciousness that you keep alive is the one of the boss who's a jerk.
Yeah.
So the chances are you're going to just keep running into the boss who's a jerk.
Yes. Manifesting that will get about.
I said, let's go within, get out of your headspace, get back into this divine space, and just start hearing him appreciate you, and you know, work feels good, and you like when people get along more, and you like when people appreciate each other more. And I said, well, just those general statements, but till you start feeling it and feeling it. And I said, feeling, you know, Neville Goddard always said feeling is the secret, and it is. It's like you can think it all day, but if you're not feeling it, then it's not changing, right? I have to feel it. So with all of my clients, it's about feeling it at the end of the day. We're using thought to feel it. Your feelings follow your focus always.
Yeah. Wow.
If I focus long enough in a certain space, like with the meditation, my feelings will follow.
Amazing.
If I focus on being appreciated and how good that feels, and I stay with that long enough, I'm going to start feeling it. The fun thing was she started doing this, and I said, do it consistently. I said, I want you 3-4 times a day, just 2 minutes here, 2 minutes there. Just go within, breathe well, see things well between the two of you, feel different about this guy, bless the business, bless everybody around you. So just have fun with it, right? And she said, she texted me, and she goes, he just initiated a conversation with me, and he was acknowledging that things haven't been good, and he really would like them to be better. You know, talk about results. And then she kept, you know, the next week or so, she's keep doing it, and she goes, things have actually been better. He's been more pleasant, you know. And I said, I said, but you're lined up differently. I said, so you're rendezvousing, you're experiencing a better version of him because you're, you know. So anyway, it was just another way of that. A lot of times that negativity, like for her, it's like he's not even there, and she's got it going on.
Creating that negative energy, putting it out there. And you helped her to change her perspective. And when she made the choice to change her perspective, he changed towards her. I love the way this works.
Specifically, she changed it till she felt it.
Wow. Feeling it, really experiencing. Yeah.
A lot of times when people are visualizing, they're not tuned into how are they feeling. And if your feeling isn't shifting, then your energy really isn't shifting yet.
Yeah.
Your thoughts might be running a certain way, but if the feeling is letting you know, my consciousness really is shifting to a new place. So when I'm feeling it, I know I'm in the right place. Like I'm really turning the station from that one to that one. Right.
I love that. And I always tell people, you know, when you are entering a room, there is a presence that you carry. People experience how you feel about yourself. It is tangible. And if you walk around with doubt and, you know, anger, they are going to shy away from you unknowingly, subconsciously, because their spirit is catching on to how you are experiencing your day or how you're feeling about yourself. So I always teach people, try and think of gratitude and everything that's beautiful. Look for that silver lining on the dark cloud. And when you take your presence into a room, they'll be drawn to you because they feel that positivity, because we are drawn to things that are positive and pleasant and beautiful. It is in our nature to do so. So I teach them that, Yeah.
And even with gratitude and stuff, it's if I'm going to purposely think of things to be grateful for, I need to do it till I feel it.
Feel it. Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm just doing a mental exercise. I'm not really going to notice a difference in my world. If I want to notice a difference in my world and I want to practice gratitude or appreciation, to me, they're slightly different, but I would say I have to do it till I'm feeling it. If I do it and I'm feeling it, I will start noticing things in my world shift.
It will become real.
Yeah.
So tell me, Michael, what makes a leader effective? Through all, I mean, you've had so many leadership positions before. You have your own practice. You know, you're an author and you work with people, and there's proven results. If you had to speak to leadership today, to someone who's a leader, and you want to tell them how to become effective, what makes a leader effective? What can they do to pursue that path?
So there's a couple of different ways I'm going to do that. So I was thinking of in corporate America, because I worked with a lot of CEOs and VPs and people in those positions. And my favorite ones, like the ones who to me were the best leaders, there was a combination of, there was a genuineness to them, and they were human, and they could be present with people in the moment. So when they came to a workshop, for example, and they shared, they were personal. They could share themselves. They could share real life. And people resonate with that. They can relate to that. It's like, oh, he's a human. I'm a human. I can relate.
Wow. Good. Amazing.
Because a lot of times leaders come in and they talk from a leadership space and they talk leadership speak. And you're not connecting to anybody, and it's all they hear is blah, 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 and they can't wait till you leave. You know?
They won't say it, but they're thinking it.
So my effective leaders, they could be genuine, and there was a real good balance of heart and intelligence. Like, they really were smart about the business. They were smart about their jobs. They were experienced. They were good at that, right? It's not like they were faking it. They truly were good at that.
Oh, good.
But they were good with people. They could relate to people. They could talk to people. They could be present with people. And when someone posed a question or a challenge, they really could be present and intelligently respond to that, and not just come up with some leadership speak, you know.
Something authentic comes to the fore.
Yeah. So I love those leaders, and they were always my favorite, right? And they made, because when I taught leadership, I always told leaders, the moment you show up, you create culture.
Yes. Wow.
So a lot of times you say you want people to speak up, you say you want people to ask questions, you say all that.
Yeah.
But are you creating a culture where they would speak up, they would ask questions? You know, I said, asking questions, it's a behavior. If I don't see it in the culture, I'm not going to do it. You can tell me all day long, ask questions. But if I go to every meeting, I'm in my work day, no one ever asks questions. I said, that's a behavior. I'm going to see it or not see it. And regardless of what you tell me, if I don't see it, I'm not going to do it. If I see it, I see people genuinely ask questions. I see people ask leaders questions. And I see leaders really handle questions well. Like, they don't shut it down.
I'm talking away.
So one, you create culture, and are you creating it? The other thing I always tell leaders is, I don't care what you understand. I care what comes out of your mouth at the end of the day.
Wow. Powerful.
You know? Because like when we would teach questions and open and closed questions, they all agreed, open questions, create the dialogue, right?
Yes.
And then we would do role plays, and I'd always put them in threes, get with a peer, practice a coaching conversation, practice the open questions. And the third person is going to be a peer, but it's going to be a coach. When you're done, they can let you know what you did well, what you didn't do well, right? Or what you could improve on. And notoriously, even though they knew to ask questions, when they would get into the coaching, even in a role play, they would tell and explain. They would revert to tell and explain.
Yeah.
And the feedback they would get is, well, you didn't ask any questions, or you asked yes, no questions. Like, the reason the person wasn't talking was because you weren't asking questions. And so I always tell them, it's like, it's not about, you understand you need to ask questions, but at the end of the day, that isn't what came out of your mouth. And
Mm.
so those two things
Wow.
come to mind.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. And, you mentioned that you worked with the youth also for a few years. I'm sure you also related these aspects over to them, through your teachings. Did you enjoy working with the youth? What was that like?
With youth, yeah. Well, so my beginning career in social work was with teenagers.
Wow.
And I probably did it a good 10 years, I guess,
Yeah.
if I think back. I really, it was challenging. Don't get me wrong. I got burnt out on it
Yes.
after 10 years or whatever it was, 15, I don't know. But I think, so I'm going to share a quick story. I had a rule
Yes.
when they would come in my office. I had a rule, and back then answering machines and stuff were popular.
Yeah.
There was a machine that would pick up the phone and answer it. So some of your audience may not even know that existed, but it did.
Well, I know that gives away my age.
Yeah. And when the teenager would come into my office, I deliberately would never answer my phone if they were in the office.
Wow.
And it was very telling. They would get very puzzled, like they kept looking at the phone and they would look at me, like they kept waiting for me to answer the phone and then come back to them. And they were just very used to that with adults. Like it was always a scattered attention that they were getting and stuff. And like, oh, I'll come back to you, I'll deal with this, and then I'll come back to you. And my rule was, if you are with me and before me, then I'm going to be with you. And I'll get back to that. And it always, just that one thing was significant with the kids I worked with.
Wow.
And so my goal with them was to try to be present with them as much as possible. I was director of a therapeutic school for a number of years. And so we took kids from all over the country, but we only had like 17 kids at a time. So it was very personal, very one-on-one, different grades of school. But my thing was always about, are you ready? It's like, I don't really care about your history. Usually they had been in and out of psych hospitals or rehabs. And so a lot of these kids would have gone to private schools, but they wouldn't touch them because of their history. They were too scared of them. Yeah. And I was like, I don't really care about your history. I care about, are you ready?
Yes.
Are you ready to get back on track? Are you ready to get back into your life? Are you ready to like stop playing all the games and all the crap?
Yes. Be serious about the future. Yeah.
Yeah. And what was beautiful is once we got enough of those kids, then they kind of own the space. They kind of own the house, the school. And then I would bring in another kid. And you do your best to judge their readiness. Yes. And then they would come in and they would start like acting up or trying to be a smart ass or something. And it was always fun to watch the other kids like, hey, we don't do that here. Yeah. they would just deal with it. And I always like to give kids multiple chances, right? Yeah. Like you're not out on the first try. I just, and I remember one kid in particular, I finally just had to discharge him. It's like, you just aren't working out. You're going to need to go somewhere. He just wasn't ready. And I will always remember we were having a group after that. And all of the kids were like, why the hell did you keep him here so long?
You mean they went along with your leadership, but they were thinking.
They were just like, my God, you should have gotten rid of him a long time ago. And I was like, and I looked at him, I was like, well, aren't you glad I didn't do that with you? Like I gave you a lot of chances, right? So it was a very special, important time. I have some of the kids I worked with who are in their 30s now, and we're still in touch. And a couple of them, they're like, he's a PhD in physics. Wow. Another one's a drug and alcohol counselor. And fun story, the guy who was cutting at one time, my hairdresser guy had gone through rehab and stuff. And come to find out, his main counselor that made the biggest difference in his life to get him sober was one of my teenagers from many moons ago who was working at the rehab center he went to.
Wow.
It was the most amazing little, like, holy crap.
Yeah, and you were a part of that.
It was too funny to know, like, that person who helped him get sober was one of my 15-year-olds who I worked with moons ago, right?
You put that foundation in place, you taught the principles, and he grew into a leader and he made a positive difference, and you were part of that. That is amazing.
Yeah, it's been really great to see, and there's a lot of them I don't know what, going on, but there's just a handful of them that I've heard about or I'm in touch with. So it was one of my careers, and it was a very important one and significant and meaningful. And
I also did a lot of things, so I know where you're coming from. It is not an easy task to work with youth, but it's so fulfilling.
Yeah.
My next question to you, Michael. Tell us about the trip that you took to the beautiful coast of Ireland in 2009. What was the leadership training like on your trip, and what stood out?
Oh, yeah, I had recently posted that picture. Facebook shows a memory, and it was like, oh, wow. And I hadn't thought about that for the longest time. So a lot of our clients were international. So like I traveled to different countries to deliver these trainings, and it was a particular leadership training. It was for supervisors. They actually manufactured Guinness beer and Baileys. And I know. I was bummed. I was like, well, y'all aren't serving any during the training. What's this about? But it took me to Ireland, and it was just they were a lot of fun to work with. And all of our trainings were experiences. So we did hands-on experiential. They were always facilitated. It was like not a presentation. So a lot of group discussion, sharing of stories, role playing, all that kind of stuff. But it was really great. It was, I don't remember how many trainings we did while I was there, but I just, it was a specific leadership for supervisors, but it was in Ireland. And so, it took a couple of days, part of that, and saw the countryside. And that was one of the pictures you saw. And it was good. And again, that was I needed a break from my world in social work. I created a list of things I wanted. It was like, I'd love to do some training, but full-time, because I'd done a little bit, but never full-time, because it felt like something I could still do that was meaningful. But at the end of the day, I was done. I needed something I could be done. I needed to not be on call. I needed it to not be about people's lives. I needed to just it's leadership training. It's not life and death.
Yes.
So I came in with a very different perspective. like you want to talk about, life and death stuff, that's different. Yeah. So
yeah.
But it was, I remember I created a list. I wanted it to be international. I thought it'd be fun to do training.
Yeah.
And then I would sit in prayer, and I would just sort of like turn that list out to God, to the universe. Right. I just moved back to Louisiana, to a little smaller town. I was in Austin, Texas before. Yeah. So my human brain was like, well, you just left a large city to come to a small town. Yeah. Now your opportunities are less. You're never going to find this job, all this kind of stuff. And I would try to shut that up, go within. It's like, this intelligence created like the universe.
Amen to that.
I think it can handle a small town, like. Yeah. And so next thing you know, I'm actually at a festival. There's a lot of those here. And I'm hanging out with my brother and a friend of his. She's chatting about what I'm doing. And I'm like, I am doing my therapy practice, but I want to get into training. And she goes, I work for an international training company. And she goes on to share about what she does. Now she's in accounting, but she hooks me up with the HR guy. And so send my resume, I end up going for an interview. You have to audition, like you have to literally do a training to like six people for an hour so they can experience you.
Yeah.
So I do that. They like me. I go for another interview and I end up getting the job. And I start on a Monday and I'm flying to New England and Scotland on a Friday.
You see how it all worked. The universe was listening.
and I was in a smaller town and not in a bigger city, and and yet.
Praise God. Amen to that.
Yeah, so it's just another example of don't underestimate what the universe can do. Right? So
I agree with you. I agree with you completely. And, it's funny how things unfold when we believe that they are possible. If we believe that they are possible.
And I did. I had to deal with my negativity. I had to deal with my mind. I was like, well, you're never, you're a smaller town. There's less opportunities. You're just going to have to settle for less, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Sometimes we have to put our logic aside and we have to just think, universe. We all do that, Michael. We all do that. We all kind of, look at a situation, do a few calculations subconsciously, put our logic into it, and that's when we self-limit. And when we push that aside that you've taught me now, anything is really possible.
Yeah, and that's a lot of my work as a coach is listening. And when I hear the limits, like they already have these established reasons why something's going to be challenging or can't work or whatever, then it's just really letting, like, maybe that's just not true,
Yeah, maybe it's not true. Maybe there's something better.
Yeah, let's just entertain that. Well, maybe the universe could figure this out, right? And
just maybe.
just maybe, right? Because again, that's just if I can let go of some of the resistant thought a little bit, I open up room for something else. Yeah. And sometimes that's all you need. You just need a little space between you and that thought that's holding you back. Yeah.
So true. So true. We've discussed your beautiful merchandise. We are going to post the website address at the end of the session. I want to ask the audience, please go and look at the beautiful items that Michael has. The book is amazing. I mean, I can't wait to order my own copy, and the second one is on its way. And I'm so happy to see that there are pages and to hear that there are pages that we can reflect on, do that self-discovery, that introspection. I love that.
Yeah, that's going to be fun with the next one. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. And now we've established that you are an avid gardener. And in South Africa, we would say you have green fingers. Yeah. So my question would be, which flower in your garden is your favorite and why?
So my favorite, I'll even show you a picture of it. It's called a Siam tulip.
Oh, wow.
It's in the ginger family. So it's these guys.
Beautiful. Amazing.
And
I love it.
They come back every year, but the blooms last forever.
Wow.
And they come in all kind of colors and shapes and stuff, but I have current favorites, and that's a current favorite.
Current favorite. Yeah, there's so many that's so beautiful.
Yeah. So that's a current favorite of mine. Yeah. So.
Beautiful. I love that. I love that. And, what I like about your book is the fact that it's personalized. It is not, those are not images that you went and looked for on the internet. Those are the flowers that you grow with your own hands. Those are the flowers that you put your love and attention into, just like you do with your relationships and the people that you coach and your business. And I like that because to me, that is authentic leadership. You are there, you are present, and what you are bringing is something from within yourself. So that's what caught my attention. Thank you.
There are gardening tips for all 43 flowers featured in the book. So if you happen to like the flower and you want to know more about it and how to grow it, I put a little extra in the back of the book, and I put gardening tips. So
I love that. Yeah. Beautiful. So we can grow our own flowers. Beautiful. Yeah. I love that. Paying it forward like that. Fantastic, fantastic. We were discussing raising your vibration, getting out of that negativity, those self-limiting beliefs, changing focus, feeling it, experiencing, what you want to move towards, that positivity, that gratitude. Explain to us, what are the benefits of raising your vibration?
So I'm just going to twist that slightly. To me, our vibration is already risen, like it's already that way. We usually aren't feeling that and experiencing that because of the way we are focused on life and thinking of it. And it's like the way we tend to focus puts us in a lesser space, a lesser frequency, a lesser vibration. When I interrupt that, I kind of go back to my natural state, which is a higher vibration.
Wow.
So I say it that way because I'm not having to create a high vibration. I'm not having to create a divine space. I'm not having to create any of that. I'm having to stop doing and focusing and being stuck in the spaces and the chronic spaces, the chronic thoughts, the chronic feelings I'm in.
Yeah.
As I interrupt that, then this natural improved state, this higher energy, this elevated energy, it's already there. I just start moving back into it. And so even like earlier, when you're in the chronic anxiety and you start just for a moment breathing here and sensing here, what starts happening is that higher energy space, it's already there. I'm leaving my focus, which has me outside of it. I'm returning to it. As I return to it, I start feeling the shift. I start feeling the ease. I start feeling relief. All those improved positive feelings are just letting me know you're tuning back in to that space that's already there. It's like the wave doesn't have to create the ocean. It's just, you can forget though the ocean even exists.
So we already, the natural state is a high vibrational state. We take ourselves out of that when we overthink. Okay, wonderful.
Yeah, there's just things we think about, things we do, things we don't do that keep us in a lesser space. But that higher space never went away. It's never there. It's like the lighthouse is always there. The divine intelligence is always on.
I love that.
And you can feel it anytime you are returning to a more positive feeling. You're returning to there.
Fantastic.
Because your feelings always are letting you know.
Where we are supposed to be functioning from, not focusing on the negative, but returning to our highest natural state. That is amazing. You're teaching us so much. Thank you, Michael.
And it's just important people don't give themselves a hard time for the negative spaces. It's just what we just still live in a current world and consciousness that's what we do. It's like, it's how we were raised. It's just what we do. It's how we think everything is. And now there is a shift. There is an awakening or a bigger awareness. So the word energy doesn't freak people out as much. Energy centers, which is what this shirt represents. It's a little more common language. Law of attraction. I started all this in the late 80s, 89, 90, but that was a very weird thing to talk about.
Yes. I remember.
In some ways it is, but
law of attraction, people were like, oh.
and today it's a little more common. It's not always necessarily understood, but it's still more, yoga used to be this really, out there, now it's in every health club you can imagine, So
Finally, they got the info right.
yeah, so there's a shift. There's a awareness and awakening, happening. So
True. I remember years ago, if someone said the universe, I mean, everybody would be like, or if there was yoga, talks of yoga, oh, no, you mustn't do that. Or energy. Oh, energy was a big buzzword. If you said energy, people like.
right.
And today it's so natural because of the knowledge that we've acquired. We know that it's a part of our existence. It's amazing. I'm just happy that we're moving in the right direction.
Right. Oh yeah.
So please continue.
No. There's an upward trend. There's no going back. So
yeah.
We will. There's turmoil on the way. We don't seem to want to do it gracefully, but but that's okay. It's still going to happen, So.
It's still going to happen. I agree. And this brings us to my favorite part of our session. You are going to conduct a meditation or an awareness session with us. So feel free to start. Thank you.
So I call it Make Peace with Your Struggle.
Awesome.
So it's going to be a guided get you out of your head, get you to your heart. But really, I would ask people to think about something you feel like you're just struggling with, just an issue in your life, or it could be a person or finance or health, or the category doesn't matter. But just sort of have that in your mind as we enter into the meditation. And I'm going to bring you from your head space to your heart space. And you'll hear me kind of refer to that as a divine space. And just use your words, use what that means. It's like don't get too caught up on all of that. But I am referring to it as a divine space, and intelligence, a consciousness, and energy. All those to me mean sort of that same thing. And then the meditation, I'm going to be asking you to rest your struggle. The energy and consciousness of our struggle is entirely different than the energy of a solution. They don't exist in the same space. It's like two different radio stations. If I'm tuned in the country, I'm not going to hear jazz. If I want to hear jazz, I've got to tune in the jazz. So this guided meditation is to, one, bring you here, to rest the thing you're struggling with. And I think of it as an ice cube resting in the sun. I don't need to try to do anything to melt that cube except rest it in a higher energy. As I rest it in the higher energy of the sun, it transforms on its own and becomes something different. So as we rest your struggle, you're just going to I'm going to say things like bless it, things like that. And you just sort of do what that means to you. There's no right or wrong with it. But I'm not trying to solve it. I'm not trying to fix it. I'm not trying to heal it. I'm not trying to change it. I'm resting it in a intelligence that really does create universes and worlds. I'm resting it in a higher frequency of energy. And I'm taking something that's a lower frequency of energy, and I'm just resting it there. And then I'm going to guide you to feel the shift within you, and just sort of linger in there for a little bit. And then we'll kind of come out. So that's the big picture of what we're going to do.
I'm looking forward to it. That sounds amazing.
Okay. So all I need you to do is just initially just close your eyes. I'm just going to recommend people put their hand on their heart. It just helps people focus sometimes to feel your hand on your heart. And initially, all I want you to do is just start taking some just normal breaths. But sense your breath in your heart space and out of your heart space. Sense you're breathing in and sense you're breathing out. And you're just going to use focusing softly on your heart space, sensing that breath, feeling that breath in, feeling that breath out. just as an easy and gentle way to shift out of your head space and into this heart space. If your mind's been really busy, it can take a moment to shift. But just trust breathing, sensing your breath, focusing softly on your breath and your heart. And just feel a slight shift from that head space to that heart space. And now I want you to reach for a couple of breaths that equal all as well. Your body, your being knows how to breathe a breath that equals all as well, regardless of anything going on in your world. So let a couple of those breaths equal all as well. Still sensing it in your heart space, still feeling it in this heart space. And at any time your mind kicks in again, and it's like, am I doing it right? Or you notice something else, or it takes you elsewhere. You don't have to worry about that. Don't fight that. Just gently bring your focus back. Let go of the thought and bring it back to your heart space and back to your breath. And you can do that as often as you need to. You don't have to stop thought, but you don't have to struggle with thought. Because you experience thought. You're not your thoughts. So just breathe another all as well breath. Feel this heart space. And just in your own way, sensing that this is a divine space, a divine presence, an intelligence, an energy, a consciousness, presence in this space. Just like an ocean and a wave. If you went into the wave, there's this presence, this vastness. As you go into yourself in this heart space, just sensing in your own way the divine intelligence, the presence, the light and energy. And just use your breath anytime you need to return back to center. And now I want you to just think about that struggle, that issue. Could be a person, could be about finance, could be health, could be work. Whatever it is, just want you to gently rest and imagine resting that issue, that person, just in this divine space, in this heart space. It's kind of like taking an ice cube and you're just resting it in the sun. You're not going to effort about melting the cube or changing the cube or fixing the cube. You're just going to rest the cube in this divine space, in the sun. And so whatever the issue is, just for a moment, let go of any need to change it, any need to fix it, any need for it to be different. Just be aware of resting it into something bigger, better. And breathe in your heart. and breathe, and all is well, breath. And we're just going to let that issue, that person linger in this divine space. And in our own way, we're just going to bless this struggle. We're going to bless this issue. We're going to bless this person. And just in your own way, bless them. See perhaps a light holding them. Perhaps a love surrounding them. And just resting them, resting you. And just for a moment, blessing you, blessing the struggle, blessing those people, all in this heart space, all in this divine space. Letting this divine energy and light just hold it, bless it, surround it. And you letting go of changing it, fixing it, needing it different. And breathing into your heart again. And breathing a breath that says that all is well. And one more time, breathing a breath. Feeling that breath, sensing that breath in this heart space that says that all is well, even while this issue rests in this space. Feeling, breathing the energy of all is well at the same time. And just letting yourself feel a shift, feel an ease, maybe a little relief as you let go of the struggle, as you let go of needing to fix it, change it. And just resting in that divine light presence. Just like that ice cube in the sun, melting on its own, transforming on its own. And we'll just remember for a moment as we breathe into this heart space, and you keep blessing yourself, your issue, your person, your struggle. We also remember in this divine space really is every solution, really is the energy of things resolved. It's the energy of ideas, things to do or not do, things to say or not say. This divine space, this heart space, it is the space of my prayer answered. It is the space of solution, of success. And I just linger in this space, and I let this space bless the struggle, bless the issue, bless yourself, bless the person if it's a person. And just for another moment, rest in this space, the space of solution, the space of well-being. I want you just to take a couple more breaths that equal all is well. In this heart space. And one more time, just blessing yourself, being pleased with you, blessing the struggle, the issue, knowing it's surrounded and held, and being transformed by divine light, intelligence, just like the sun transforms the ice cube. And on your last breath of all is well, start making your way back. Take your time, no rush. And just bringing yourself back to present, back to here and now. And you just open your eyes when you're ready.
Wow, wow, wow.
Welcome back.
Amazing. That was so, so lovely, so refreshing.
You mind sharing a little bit about how you felt before, how you feel now, any just experience that went on within?
I think when we start off, I felt a little bit heavy.
Mm-hmm.
I really had to focus to get out of my mind space into my heart space. Because every time I went from my mind space to my heart space, a thought would pop up. And then you mentioned, if it happens, just breathe and just, let it go naturally. So I found myself in my heart space. And I experienced that I was seeing the ocean and I was seeing the situation that I was facing.
Mm-hmm.
And really just felt like that situation was, I saw an image of the situation being resolved. And then when we came back, I felt light. I feel lighter. It's like a load has been lifted.
Awesome.
So that was my experience. And I'm going to have to journal that tonight because of the image that I saw, because I saw how the situation unfolded, how it was restored. So, wow, that was amazing.
That's great.
I love that.
So the things that are significant is one that you literally felt a shift within,
Yeah.
right? And that means you did touch on a better consciousness, a higher state of consciousness, right? And some people they'll experience images.
Yeah.
I know one woman I was doing this with, she's in charge of an IT department at a major university. Right?
Yeah.
And when my electronics don't work, that can stress me out. It's like I got all the patience in the world with people, but not my electronics. So I can't imagine being in charge of like the university, the entire university, college. And she had been struggling with an issue all day long, and so we went into meditation, and it was about 10 minutes. And she said, all of a sudden, the solution just popped in, right? And again, it's the consciousness and energy of the struggle.
Yeah.
The consciousness and energy of the solution, they're entirely different.
Yeah.
And so if I can tune out of one and tune into the other, then things can come, the improved feeling of ease can come, sometimes ideas come, that kind of stuff. So, well, cool. I'm glad you had that experience.
I love that. And the answer to what I was presenting or bringing to my heart space, as it unfolded in that image, it's something that I didn't think of. Mm-hmm. Because, the first thing we do is when we want to problem solve, we make a list of all the possible outcomes. Mm-hmm. And I've certainly done that. And the outcome I saw in my vision, I'd call it, while I was in my heart space, is something I didn't think of, which is amazing because I understand that you're saying we're tapping into a higher self. So we're not thinking the way we would be thinking normally.
Right. That divine intelligence, that higher intelligence can offer you different ideas that your analytical mind or your mind that can only see within matter, space, and time, which is always going to have a limited view of a solution.
Yeah.
That divine space is never limited by matter, space, and time. So it doesn't need to consult with matter, space, and time to come up with a better idea.
Amazing. I love that.
Yeah,
And I've seen it for myself. It's amazing right now in your session. Wow.
Yeah. So a lot of times it is presented to you. It's kind of like you, and what I tend to notice is it's kind of, it has to do with intuition a little bit too, is thoughts from that divine space, which I call that intuition, tend to come from here upward. Like if you notice, did the thought originate in my brain or did I notice it traveled to my brain?
Yeah.
And I noticed for myself, all my intuitive ideas tend to come to my brain, like they travel upward. And actually, there's more research these days as they study intuition. They're noticing it actually registers first in your heart intelligence, in your heart center, and then it makes its way to your brain. So there's more research supporting that as well. But I do feel as you go into a higher state of intelligence that exists always, but I tune into it, then something else can come
into that.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. And I'm sure the audience also feel refreshed and liked, and that they also have a breakthrough. That was amazing. Thank you so much for including that into our session. I love that.
No, you're welcome. And I know we went way past what we planned. So.
Never mind. This cannot be put into a box. We have to flow.
Yeah. No, so I'm glad we still did it. So
I'm glad to. It's life-changing. It really is. And it's something that I will have to, make a part of my life routine. So thank you very much for that. I really appreciate
and
it.
It is a guided meditation I do offer. So it's an online, I think it's like $10 or something. You can kind of
fantastic
purchase it and and it's about 15 minutes or something like that.
So the audience, we're going to make them aware of where to access that and how to tap into that and to, do that, use that product that you offer. Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's making its way to the link's going to make its way to my website. I'm a little behind on updating my website. If you email me at Michael, Michael, at createwithconsciousness.com.
Yeah.
I can easily send the link to any of that stuff.
Wonderful.
But it will make its way to my website soon. So
fantastic. Something to look forward to. I love it. Tell me, Michael, what's next for you? What are the projects you're working on?
The new book is probably my biggest project I'm in the middle of. So I've submitted 35 chapters to my editor with the worksheets. And so editing's happening right now. I had about 10,000 photos to go through.
Oh my goodness.
I've whittled it down to about 800.
Wow.
and now I need to whittle it down because I only need about 40 to 50, so we'll see which ones make the final cut.
Amazing. I'm sure you'll be able to do that.
In some ways, I think finalizing the picture has been harder than the writing of the chapters. It's but I am excited about the new book. I'm excited about the worksheets and people getting to go and dig deeper. So that's probably my biggest project. I'm probably about once a month or so, I do teach a meditation workshop with this heart breath process, and we practice it, and I teach the science piece in there, and we cover all that. And so that's going to continue. And I have a few more guided meditations I want to create. So awesome. Yeah, but I'd say the book is probably the bigger focus at the moment.
We're looking forward to all of the above. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, I'm going to share one more thing, and that is, so I do a free true guided meditation with people for their first contact if they're interested. It's kind of my try your shoes on before you buy them.
Okay. I love that analogy.
It's like, well, if you can try on something like shoes before you have to buy them, you should at least be able to try on a coach before you have to pay for it. Right? And so, but in that session, I treat it as a real session. So we look at what you want. We'll do a guided process together if you're into that. And then I record it and you're free to use it, going forward. So just kind of know that that's out there for folks as well.
Wonderful offer to the audience. Please make use of that offer. Contact Michael and, take it from there. It's a wonderful starting point to getting to the life that you love and want and deserve. And Michael is going to walk that road with you. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. It's been fun. I've appreciated being here.
It has. My final question to you, Michael. Any words of wisdom to the audience?
The last thing that just popped in my head when you said that is nothing going on is chronic. It can be influenced. There is a true divine presence, intelligence. You can leverage that because it actually is you. So just sort of suspend your doubt, suspend your limit. It's like, well, maybe the universe can do that.
Keep your mind open to new possibilities.
Right.
Well, I started at this session and I said, we have time with the astonishing Michael Le Blanc. And if I look back to our session, it surely was an astonishing session. Thank you for making the time to share your wisdom and your knowledge with us. We deeply appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. It's fun. I enjoy it. So thanks a lot for having me.
Thank you, Michael. And to the audience, thank you for tuning in and have a wonderful week. And we'll see you again. Michael's details will be available at the end of the session. Reach out to him, network with him, and, just cheer him on as he writes his next book and as he transforms and changes lives in a positive manner. Thank you and good night.
Thanks.